Most gardeners spend every spring on their knees replanting the same vegetables year after year. But what if I told you there's a whole world of crops that keep producing with almost no effort once they're established? These perennial powerhouses laugh at frost, shrug off neglect, and deliver harvests for decades while you're busy living your life. If that sounds like the garden you've been dreaming about, stick around because today we're diving deep into 10 incredible perennial crops that will transform the way you think about growing food. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly gardening tips. Hey there, garden friends, and welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here today because we're about to explore something that changed my entire approach to gardening. Let's jump right in. Picture this. It's early spring, and while your neighbors are still planning their annual gardens, your asparagus bed is already pushing up tender green spears. Asparagus seems intimidating because, yes, you wait 2 or 3 years before that first harvest, but once those crowns settle in, they'll produce for 20 years or more. The secret is giving them what they crave from day one. Plant crowns in loose, well-draining soil enriched with compost in full sun. Set them in trenches about 6 inches deep, then gradually fill in soil as spears emerge. During those first years, the fern-like foliage builds energy reserves underground, so let those fronds grow. By year 3, you'll harvest spears for 6 to 8 weeks every spring, snapping them off when they're finger-thick. Asparagus survives brutal winters across most of the country, from Minnesota to North Carolina. After harvest, let the ferny tops grow tall because they're fueling next year's spears. Then cut them back in late fall once they turn brown. Have you ever grown asparagus, or is this your year? Now let's talk about rhubarb, which most people think is purely ornamental, but it's actually one of the most reliable perennial crops you can grow. Those massive leaves and brilliant red stalks are a springtime staple across the northern states where summers don't get too scorching. Rhubarb needs winter chill to produce well, thriving from the upper Midwest through New England. Once you plant a crown in rich, moist soil, it'll keep producing tart stalks for 15 to 20 years. Choose a spot with full sun to partial shade, dig in loads of compost, and keep the crown just below the soil surface. Don't harvest the first year. Take a few stalks in year 2, and by year 3, you'll be pulling armloads for pies and jams. Grab stalks near the base and twist and pull rather than cutting. Only the stalks are edible because the leaves contain oxalic acid that can make you ill, so always trim them off. Rhubarb appreciates mulch to keep roots cool and compost each spring. Cut off flower stalks so the plant focuses on producing stalks instead of seeds. After 5 or 6 years, divide crowded clumps in early spring or fall. What's your favorite way to use fresh rhubarb? Let me take you to berry bushes that quietly produce year after year. Blueberries are perennial crops that feed you and look stunning. In every season, with delicate flowers in spring, loads of berries in summer, and fiery red foliage in autumn. Blueberries are particular about soil, craving acidic conditions with pH between 4.5 and 5.5, which is why pine needle mulch works beautifully. Whether you're in Michigan, Georgia, or the Pacific Northwest, you can find varieties for your climate, from high bush types for colder regions to rabbit eye for the south. Plant at least 2 varieties for cross-pollination. spacing them 4 to 6 feet apart in sun with excellent drainage. Their shallow roots hate waterlogged soil, so use raised beds if you have heavy clay. Once established, these bushes produce for 30 to 50 years with just occasional pruning. Blueberries don't need traditional fertilizer if you maintain acidic soil with organic matter, though spring feeding helps. Berries ripen over several weeks throughout summer, so you'll pick fresh handfuls continuously. Birds love blueberries, so net your bushes as fruit colors up. Do you already have blueberries, or are you adding them this season? Here's something surprising. Walking onions are one of the weirdest perennial crops you'll grow. These quirky alliums send up stalks that develop tiny bulbils at the top, and as those get heavy, the stalk bends over and plants them nearby, literally walking across your garden. Both underground bulbs and topset bulbils are edible, tasting like onions and shallots with extra punch. The green shoots work great in salads and stir-fries, and you can harvest throughout the season without killing the plant. Walking onions survive winters into Zone 3 and handle summer heat, perfect from Montana to Tennessee. Plant bulbils or divisions in fall or spring in well-drained soil with decent sun, and they'll multiply enthusiastically. They're maintenance-free once established, needing no fertilizer, minimal water, and no pest control. Dig underground bulbs in fall, leave topset bulbils to propagate, or harvest both, and still have plenty for next year. The architectural stalks with dangly bulbils create interesting texture in perennial beds. Have you heard of walking onions before? Now let's talk about strawberries, which transform bare ground into lush, edible carpet. While most treat June-bearing varieties as annuals, the magic happens with ever-bearing or day-neutral types that produce berries all season and spread via runners. Start with disease-free plants in amended soil with crowns at the right height, not buried or exposed. Strawberries love full sun and consistent moisture, though they tolerate partial shade in hotter areas. Established plants send out runners with baby plants that root naturally to fill your bed, or snip them off for more productive mother plants. In cold regions, thick straw mulch protects crowns from freeze-thaw cycles. Renovate June-bearing patches every few years by mowing foliage after harvest, thinning crowded plants, and top-dressing with compost. Ever-bearing types are more forgiving, producing for 3 to 5 years before refreshing. Strawberries reward you with fruit the first year, so gratification is instant. What's your biggest challenge with strawberries? Let me share something that might change how you think about herbs forever. Most people replant basil and cilantro every year, but perennial herbs like oregano, thyme, sage, and chives come back stronger each season and practically grow themselves. Oregano spreads into fragrant mats that smell incredible when you brush past them, thriving in poor soil and drought conditions that would stress out annual vegetables. Thyme creeps along pathways and between stepping stones, releasing its aromatic oils with every footstep, and it's hardy enough to survive New England winters and Texas summers alike. Sage develops into silvery green shrubs that look beautiful year-round and flavor everything from roasted vegetables to holiday stuffing. Chives are often the first green thing to pop up in spring, offering mild, onion-flavored leaves and edible purple flowers that pollinators adore. The beauty of perennial herbs is that you can plant them once in well-draining soil with decent sun, then harvest fresh flavor for years with nothing more than occasional trimming to keep them bushy. They're perfect for containers, raised beds, or tucked into ornamental gardens where they pull double duty as both food and landscaping. Here's a pro tip. Harvest herbs in the morning after dew dries but before the day heats up, which is when their essential oils are most concentrated and flavorful. Most perennial herbs actually prefer lean soil and benefit from neglect, so skip the heavy fertilizing that works for vegetables. A light trim after flowering keeps plants compact and encourages fresh growth, and many can be divided every few years to multiply your herb collection or share with neighbors. Which perennial herb do you use most in your cooking? Here's where things get really exciting, because I saved one of my absolute favorites for this moment. Horseradish is that tough-as-nails perennial that grows like a weed once you give it a home, producing pungent roots that clear your sinuses and elevate everything from roast beef to Bloody Marys. Plant one small root cutting in a corner of your garden, and within a year, you'll have a thriving clump that returns reliably every spring, no matter how cold your winters get. Horseradish actually prefers cold climates and grows vigorously across the northern states, though it adapts to warmer regions if given afternoon shade and consistent moisture. The big floppy leaves grow several feet tall and wide, so give it space away from more delicate plants that might get crowded out. Here's the thing about horseradish. It's nearly impossible to kill and will spread aggressively if you let it. So many gardeners plant it in large buried containers or dedicated beds where its enthusiastic nature won't become problematic. Harvest the roots in fall after frost sweetens them slightly, digging up what you need and leaving some pieces in the ground to regenerate next year's crop. Fresh horseradish root is exponentially more flavorful than anything you'll find in a jar at the grocery store, and grating it yourself means you control the heat level and freshness. The leaves aren't typically eaten, but the roots store well in the refrigerator for months, or can be preserved by grating and mixing with vinegar. One plant provides more horseradish than most families can use, making it perfect for sharing or adding to homemade condiments and pickles. Do you already grow horseradish, or does this convince you to try it? Now let's talk about something that transforms vertical space into productive growing area with almost no ground footprint. Grapes aren't just for massive vineyards in California. Backyard gardeners across the country grow table grapes, juice grapes, and even wine grapes on arbors, fences, and trellises with great success. The key is choosing varieties suited to your region, whether that's Concord grapes for the Northeast and Midwest, muscadines for the hot, humid South, or European varieties for drier Western climates. Grapes need full sun to ripen properly and produce sweet fruit, plus a sturdy support system because mature vines get heavy with foliage and fruit clusters. Plant bare root vines in early spring in well-draining soil amended with compost, spacing them about 8 feet apart along your trellis system. The first couple years focus on training the vine to your support structure and establishing a strong root system, so you'll prune off most growth and any fruit clusters to redirect energy into building a solid framework. By year 3, your grapevine starts producing fruit worth harvesting, and from that point forward, you'll get abundant crops for decades with annual pruning to maintain shape and productivity. Grapes need consistent pruning during dormancy to remove old wood and encourage new fruiting canes, which sounds complicated but becomes intuitive once you understand that grapes fruit on 1-year-old wood. The reward for this maintenance is bushels of fresh grapes perfect for eating, juicing, making jelly, or even fermenting into wine, if that's your passion. Grapes are surprisingly cold-hardy depending on variety, with some types surviving winters well into Zone 4, while others thrive in the heat and humidity of Zone 9. Watch for common issues like powdery mildew in humid climates, which proper air circulation and preventative organic sprays can manage effectively. Have you considered adding a grapevine to your landscape? Let me tell you about something that might seem too good to be true. Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes, are perennial sunflowers that produce knobby, nutty-tasting tubers underground while their tall stalks create beautiful privacy screens above. Plant a few tubers in spring, and by fall, you'll be digging up pounds of these crunchy vegetables that taste like a cross between artichoke hearts and water chestnuts. The plants grow 6 to 10 feet tall with cheerful yellow flowers in late summer, making them perfect for the back of perennial borders or along fence lines where their height creates living walls. Jerusalem artichokes are incredibly vigorous and will spread enthusiastically, so plant them where you don't mind them naturalizing or use barriers to contain their growth. They tolerate poor soil, drought, and neglect better than most vegetables, thriving across nearly every climate zone in the continental United States. Harvest tubers after frost improves their sweetness, digging up what you need throughout fall and winter while leaving some in the ground to regenerate next year's crop. Here's something important to know. These tubers contain inulin rather than starch, which some people find harder to digest, so start with small amounts if you're trying them for the first time. They're delicious, roasted, sautéed, or sliced raw into salads, adding unique flavor and crunch to dishes. One planting provides years of harvests with zero maintenance beyond keeping them from taking over your entire garden. What's the most unusual perennial vegetable you've ever grown? I saved the one that surprised me most for last, because most people never think of this as something you can grow at home. Fruit trees, especially dwarf and semi-dwarf varieties, are ultimate perennial crops that transform your yard into an edible landscape, producing for 20, 30, even 50 years. Apple trees are remarkably adaptable across the country, with varieties bred for everything from Minnesota's brutal winters to Georgia's mild climate. Pear trees tolerate both cold and heat, offering buttery fruit with minimal pest pressure compared to other tree fruits. Cherry trees, both sweet and tart varieties, thrive in different regions and provide stunning spring blossoms plus delicious fruit. Plum trees produce abundantly and adapt to various climates, while peach trees flourish where summers are hot and winters provide necessary chill hours. The key to success with fruit trees is choosing varieties with appropriate chill hour requirements and disease resistance for your area, then planting them in full sun with good drainage and air circulation. Dwarf varieties stay manageable at 8 to 10 feet tall, perfect for small yards or even large containers, while still producing full-sized fruit. Standard trees require more space but produce larger harvests and live longer, becoming focal points in your landscape. Plant bare root trees in late winter or early spring, or container-grown trees anytime during the growing season, making sure the graft union stays above soil level. Young trees need consistent watering and protection from deer and rabbits, plus annual pruning to develop strong branch structure and maintain productivity. Once established, fruit trees become relatively low maintenance, rewarding you with blossoms, shade, and abundant harvests that make you wonder why anyone buys grocery store fruit. The satisfaction of biting into a sun-warmed peach or crisp apple from your own tree is incomparable to anything store-bought. Which fruit tree would you most love to plant in your yard? So there you have it, 10 incredible perennial crops that keep giving year after year with far less work than annual gardens demand. From asparagus spears in early spring to grapes ripening in late summer, from fresh herbs always at your fingertips to fruit trees that become family heirlooms, these plants prove that the best gardens are the ones that work with you rather than demanding constant replanting. The beautiful thing about perennials is they get better with age, developing stronger root systems and more abundant production as the years pass, all while you're spending less time working and more time enjoying the harvest. Starting a perennial garden is an investment in your future, creating food security and connection to the land that lasts for decades. Which of these perennial crops speaks to you most? And what's the first one you'll add to your garden this season? If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so we can keep growing together. Until next time, happy gardening.